So, this freezes up my computer. There are too many quakes. I can't even zoom in over here. But there's been lots, mostly centered around Ridgecrest and Koso Volcanic Field, but they're also concerned about some of the other volcanoes along this tectonic plate, is what it is. And I'm just gonna wait for this to unfreeze, and then we can go up to Washington, where we've had some other earthquakes that are notable. We have Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, Cannon Mountain, a bunch of them over here. But so we have a small quake, 1.2. Up here in Seattle, we're having a bit of a swarm. This is a 2.0 on the Washington side, and there was a 1.9 recently within the last week. But let's look up here in Monroe. So this is the swarm I'm talking about. We got a 2.5 here today, as well as a 1.9 and 1.6. There was a 4.6 earthquake. It says it was on the 12th, so 2 days ago now. But more earthquakes in the same spot, as you have this 2. And there are just so many earthquakes. It's overloading my Google Earth. But you can see right here where it is. This is a 2.1. Now we did have a 6.0 earthquake along the way. I turned off all of my place marks other than earthquakes at the moment because there's just so much information. There's been ice quakes in this general region. Let's try and get a better look. 1.5 near Strawberry Island, Alaska. Some ice quakes on the north side of this swirly pond. Now, that's such an interesting formation. I guess you'd really have to be there to see it. Rocky cliffs up ahead. Let's see if my place mark will take us in here. It's a little bit slow, so give it a moment. So this event started on July 4th, but I think I noticed it on the 3rd because there was a 6.0 earthquake off the coast of British Columbia just before this happened, and now you can see it's definitely an active seismic zone. But if we look a little bit closer here, we've got a volcanic peak and this Koso volcanic fields, which if you're looking, it says it's not active, however, it's definitely rumbling. And that's raised other concerns, not just about this region. See, here's a 1.3 this hour. So it's not just about this region here, but we can go up a little bit further and more earthquakes right at the spot where there's a volcano. Similar to Yellowstone, this caldera has a magma pool, and if there's earthquakes, that can sometimes mean that there is magma movement underneath the crust. And just as we saw in Hawaii, when magma started fountaining out into backyards at Leilani Estates last summer. These things can escalate kind of quickly. So speaking of earthquake activity and a volcano, here is another earthquake over a year later in Leilani Estates. Multiple fissures opened up here last year. Lava was pouring out. I may have a screenshot. That may not be it. Hang on. I'm giving her all she's got. Oh, yeah, there's the Long Valley Caldera we were just looking at. And here is the fissure. So we can take a closer look. So this is what happens when you live on a volcano. You are at risk of lava. And I have all of these maps from the multiple fissures that opened up and the lava flows that poured into the sea. So just fascinating stuff. I find it very interesting. This region here seems to be shaking, and if it ever falls into the ocean, potentially there could be risk of tsunami for the Hawaiian Islands. In fact, their history is all about that, as they live on a volcano in the middle of the ocean. But it's a fascinating world, and let's just take a quick trip around the planet before I end this. We got a 4.1 in this bay of the Honduras. Do we have a name? Oh, well, this is a volcano, clearly. Cosiguina. So, 4.1 at another volcano. We come down here to Argentina, Peru. What do we have? These are all quakes within the last week, but sometimes this region rings like a bell. 4.0, 4.4, 4.4 in Chile, 4.7, and a 4.1 in Argentina. So here's a recent quake today, just north of Santiago, 4.2. Let's take a closer look. This is the city of Santiago. Nestled between the mountains, this beautiful city is home to many people. Looks like they have a racetrack, a stadium. Looks like a beautiful place, but just to the north, here is an earthquake. Looks like it's not necessarily near anything, but someone might have felt it in La Croix or one of these other towns nearby. So I'm just continuing down to the south of South America to have a look at some of these seismically active regions. One of my favorite islands. I'd love to take a cruise here one day and film some penguins. This is Zavadoski Island, a volcano home to many types of penguins. There was a 4.9 here within the last week, and this is where the plates converge, you can see, in the south. So there have been numerous quakes all across Europe, and you have to pull up the European earthquake database in order to see them all, but some notable ones we had in Algeria yesterday was a 5.0. Here we have several in Greece, a 4.5 and a 4.9 today. Just south of Crete we have a 4.3, near a 4.8 within this last week. We can move across. You see northern Turkey, 4.4. Some recent quakes in Iran, 4.7, 5.7. And we'll go a little bit further south to the north of Somalia. We have the Gulf of Aden, and there are tectonic plate lines that you'd see here if I have that overlay on. There's a 4.8 and a 5.0. And we'll just look at this. Hajir. So just prior to the California earthquakes starting, there were 2 earthquakes in China that were notable. And we can go up here. They may not appear anymore on this map, but we have a 4.3 near the border of Myanmar and India. Alright, we'll straighten ourselves out and go south to the Philippines, where we had a 4.7 near a 5.6 and a 5.1 and a 4.9 and a 4.9 earlier this week at yet another caldera. Mount Ipo is a solifotaric, potentially active stratovolcano in the island of Mindanao, Philippine, with an altitude of almost 3,000 meters. It's the highest mountain in the country. Whew. Apo means ancestor and is a flat-top mountain with 3 peaks. Fascinating. But concerning that there are some earthquakes here. And this 4.7. So here's where all the action is right now. Looks like North Molucca Island has been struck by a 7.3, and there are people who live here, although the pictures are not very clear. We have some small villages, but let's just look at these real quick. We got a 7.3, 5.1, 5.0, 5.3, 4.6, 4.8, 4.4, 5.7, 4.8, 4.7, and then about sometime in the last week here, we had a 5.1. That was on the 11th, so 3 days ago. Across the bay at Bulaku Sibela, Buku Sibela, we have a 4.7, a 4.7, a 5.0, a 5.8, and a 4.6. So my thoughts go out to the people in North Molucca and the adjacent Pulau, South Halmahera Regency. And anybody in this area who's affected, I have some friends that live in this area, but you can see some other earthquake activity within the last week here to the north. And if we keep on going, we have a 5.1 over here. Now I'm just going to circle around Australia so we can see the recent quakes. Down here we've got 4.5, and even large ones in this area are very common. It just represents some of the plate tectonics that are happening. This area here has been active the last month, so we have some pressure, 5.2, 5.2, 4.7, 4.9. And then I discovered that this whole region here, all of this, is a volcano. So be aware. So Australians may be curious to find out. You had a 4.5 and a 6.6 today, and a 4.9 and a 4.5. There's not a whole lot in this northern region, but there are some settlements. Some cities. I was looking at one earlier. We'll see if I can find it. This would be a beautiful vacation. White sands, lots of sun. So no skyscrapers falling because of this earthquake. It's quite far offshore. I'll actually just measure it here. Yeah, that's over 150 kilometers out to sea, but something to keep an eye on and to see if there's any other earthquakes in this region. Up here in Malaysia, we've got 4.9 and a 4.7. And I suppose we'll just go back to North Japan, 4.4, 4.3, 4.1. So this area here started quaking about the same time as the California quakes started. And this volcano may or may not have erupted. I don't have that data. But recent quakes you can see in yellow. Quakes today in orange. This one here near Anchorage, Alaska. And some more earthquakes near the Kodiak Seamount right here. Lots of earthquake swarms in North Alaska, both in the east and the west. And there's methane pouring out from one of these areas. So that's something to think about. But yeah, West Coast is quiet at the moment. Just some small ones over the last week here, as we've had tons of trembling down in California, and this is going to freeze my computer if I look at it again. But let's quickly go east and look at the recent quakes in Oklahoma. There's a number of them. We'll go down here and have a look at some of these near Bridge Creek. Just 2.3, 2.0, very small. But still notable. At least I find it fascinating. Right now, as we've been watching this, we've got a 3.1 northwest of Blackwell, Oklahoma. And some other recent quakes in the same general area. 1.7, 1.9, 2.2, 2.9, 3.0, 3.1. Just now. Sunday night. 2.0 and a 2.3 to the west, and some other earthquakes scattered all over and around Oklahoma City. If we go a little bit further, this is the New Madrid fault line, this seismically active zone. It's not uncommon to see 2.5 or smaller earthquakes on a fairly regular basis, but nothing to worry about at this moment. In fact, when we do see smaller earthquakes popping up, that's a good sign, because it's sometimes releasing pressure. Better to get some smaller earthquakes than a big one. But we do end up getting about 1 or 2 big earthquakes per year. And I would say this California quake probably counts. Also within the last week, a 1.4 in South Carolina. And up in Quebec, we have a 3.7. Now there is also other earthquake data that does not show up on this USGS Google Earth feed, but if you look up the Canadian earthquakes, you can find those, and there have been quite a few along the west coast. I have a lot of place marks, but I turned them all off to make this video so it would run a little bit faster. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for my next video.